Okie dokie. Actually got a scene from the DLC on display. I don't want to give away too much at this point, but yeah, we're using the whole width of the screen for the narration interludes in between chapters, as opposed to just part of the middle of it, as in the base game. And we're using the updated world map, so it actually looks accurate. Oh, I'm gonna actually record this so I can get the VOD up on. I'll just download it from Twitch. Okie dokie. Who is here? Well, this is not my usual time, so I don't expect a whole bunch of people at the moment, but happy with whoever is here. I see Devon. I see Exemplar Kyle. Hello, Kyle. All right. Yeah, it's a weird time, but I'm unable to do it any later in the day, so we got to get it done kind of early on a Sunday. Thanks for being flexible if you're here. Yeah, I want to get through. Microphone appears to be set to mono. Okay, hold on a second. Oh boy. Thanks for the heads up. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, check. Is that different? That different? Okay, how about that? Is that different? Oh, great. Wonderful. Okay, I can see how that would be really annoying. Dork Jerkle. It's kind of a tongue twister. Okay, our topics today. Not a lot of folks here, but we'll just get started. The VOD will be worth watching. So the topics today are going to be... we're going to talk about the grinding debate that kind of happened in our channel and on Steam forums. I want to update on translation for those who are waiting for various languages to come through. We're finally approaching a technical solution here that will allow us to actually import translated strings in 8 different languages and have a dynamic switcher in the game, which will allow us to... the game will read your system language, and it will open in that language, and they will include English, French, Russian, Italian, German, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. I want to also get Just UT. Hello. First time chat. I also want to get Brazilian Portuguese in there, but I'm probably going to need fans to help me out with that one, because it's not part of the normal suite of languages. Excuse me. Okay. I mean, as long as I'm on translation here. So I want to. Oh, by the way, I have some nerds that I'm kind of snacking on. Oh no, I'm not, because they're all gone. Awesome. I want to reiterate that, like, it is our. I'm looking right at the camera right now. It's our top priority. It's our top priority. Okay, so we have very limited technical resources to try and get over the engine limitations. It's very difficult to figure out a way to get this RPG Maker based engine to read external strings for the purposes of one build that can dynamically switch between 9 languages. So that has been a little bit of a technical nightmare, but we're approaching a solution. Our publisher is going to provide the translation services, and then we're going to probably when we get those back, we're going to put those in QA, of course. So we're going to have to just pick apart, to see if it actually got picked up by the game code. And in that process, while we're doing that, I want to put that translation in front of one of several volunteers for pretty much every language on that list that have stepped up among fans. I've got your names in terms of, did this translation company pick up all the nuance? And, for some of the languages, I would have no idea. For the Latin-based languages, I'm not going to say I'm fluent, but I'm familiar enough with Spanish and Italian and really those two. And by kind of extension, it would be Portuguese to know, like, if the translator is, like, putting nonsense in there. But if it was like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, I would have no idea. They could be putting in all sorts of vile, weird things in there, and I would have no idea. So, of course, we can put it in Google Translate, but nobody likes machine translate. So, reiterating, it is a human translation that will be happening. So, the translations are not ready. As I said, we're trying to get the strings exported in a way that the game can read successfully, and that we can send off to the translation team of actual humans, native speakers, which is a costly, both in money and time, process. So we can't do that until we know the process is going to work. First time chat from Jinzin. Hello. Give us a follow. I'll be actually reaching out once the translations come back from the team that we're sending it off to. I will be reaching out to the folks who have already given me their name as volunteers. I will have to actually, like, confirm your credentials. So if you're like, I want someone that's not only a native speaker, but also can somehow prove that, excuse me, prove to me that they've got the know-how to actually provide an even better interpretation of the language than what will come back from the translation team. So, whether that's a game or something you've already translated from English or whatever. So, okay, and I have a rash of volunteers for Chinese. Okay, my Chinese players. I hear you. We hear you. Okay. We're very happy that our Chinese player base is enthusiastic about our game. We are going to be translating all languages at the same time, so nobody's getting favored or nobody's getting left behind. We know how important it is for translations to be accurate and told in a voice that is indicative of an obvious native speaker, right? So I don't always live by this mantra. I think this project management mantra is actually quite a failure, but in this case it's true, because translation is not a skill that I have, and this process is something I don't have much control over. And that's the whole quote of, do you want it cheap, do you want it fast, or do you want it done well? And in this case, there is no such thing as cheap. So we have that done. But the thing that we're not able to sacrifice is the quality. You don't want a bad quality translation. Okay? So what we're all going to have to understand is that the thing we're sacrificing is time. It's not going to be fast. So I would say by the beginning of 2023, maybe we will have the ability to launch a translation build. So that's you know what I mean? Like, that's getting all of that done on the translator side of a 60,000 word game and getting it back and QAing it, getting all that stuff done. That's a tall order. So understand how much small of a team we are, and please be patient. Just Duty says, I've been wondering if the translation would keep the richness of expression. Well, that's the idea behind doing it the right way. You know, if it was Spanish, I can actually, like, I'm good enough at Spanish where I can actually tell. I'm not a native speaker and I'm not fluent, but I'm good enough that I can tell if somebody's putting like Google Translate level Spanish or like poetic Spanish, you know, or like native speaker Spanish where it sounds elegant, right? So as a proof, you'd ask for a degree qualification. Well, not a degree. You know, I mean, if a degree is something that's available, I kind of doubt that most people are going to have some kind of degree in translation. I guess, you know, foreign languages or whatever. But if that's what you want to, I mean, I don't want to like push people away. We're happy to have volunteers. We just have to know that, especially for languages not based in Latin words and Latin lettering, like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Russian, we're going to have no idea how to even judge the quality of the translation. We're depending completely on that person. So that person has to prove, you know, that they're going to provide a good quality translation, you know. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. That's kind of a boring subject. Let's get a little bit spicier here. So there's been a debate about just trying to be elegant translation on my screen. Right on. Well, yeah. When it comes time, so I'll put an end cap on the translation thing. When it comes time for us to reach out for volunteers, I have my list. I do have a couple of people in French already, but you know, it wouldn't hurt to have like a Discord group chat for like just the French translation, where you plus the two others or whoever wants to volunteer for just the French translation can be in that Discord chat. And then you can kind of go over together collaboratively with me. For example, there's some things in the game where the English is a little weird, like how Raskuja talks. He says, I am to be being blah, blah. You know, he has weird grammar, and he rolls his R's, you know, Raskuja, right? So I've got words that are spelled weird. So the English sometimes is a little funky. Sometimes people talk with a lot of apostrophes in the English. Or like the words are truncated. Like instead of you, they say ya. Or, you know, Stefan does that a lot, right? Just Yudi, just send me a DM in Discord. It's fine. I'll get to it when I can. I've got quite a day today, so I might not get to it right away. But yeah, I'll get your name on our list for French. Okay, so there was a debate happening on who's all here. Is no more people show up? We have not a lot. Alice Sidra. Steve Alroth is here. Okay. I know, it's a weird time of day. So the debate happening on Steam forums and on Discord for grinding. So I want to go to a post that Mithrin typed out that actually put it into words better than I anticipated, better than I could actually. It was very well written. So we're talking about the endurance mode, right? Which is not a thing, guys. It's just it's not something that we put in the official public release. It's something that we thought about. We actually changed the name of it several times in development and never finished it because we had to pivot to other things like translation. Now, the reason we wanted to put endurance mode in is because we felt that perhaps the base game should include some kind of catch-up mechanic, right? But as things started to evolve, we found that the inclusion of a catch-up mechanic in itself was a flaw. It was flawed conceptually and in its implementation. If you have a catch-up mechanic, what do you cap the progress that you can get to? Do you cap it at exactly what the scenario level is at the current story chapter you're on? So then there's a hard cap on how many levels you can get or CP you can get. Do you cap it at the highest level in your army, for example? There's a lot of different ways to do that. So if you have that and it's infinite and there's no cost to it, why would you not just continue to infinitely grind that catch-up mode until literally everyone is capped on every chapter? The only reason you wouldn't do that is because, you just want to move forward. You want to move forward in the story, and you're kind of tired of grinding the same thing. So, and I want to actually post something. I need to be right back here. But while I need to take a quick couple minutes break here. But let's see. This is something. Where did that cut off? This is something. This is a well-written post from Mithrin from our Discord here. Okay, we'll continue with the grinding debate in just a second. I'll Okay. Okay, so Endurance was pulled for now because not only was it not finished, but we didn't feel that it did a particularly good job at even being a catch-up mode with the path that we were on. It led to changes in play patterns even among the testers. Die-hard loyal fans was burning them out. Yeah. As much as it can be said, just don't use it. The problem with this is very few people will self-regulate something that they think might harm their gameplay experience. Yep. This is something they usually and generally should trust the dev to curate for them. Yep. They might also use their past experiences to guide them. Oh, that was pretty difficult. I should probably make my numbers bigger so it's not difficult next time. Which is a common RPG trope. This is a trap that I am acutely aware of, and as a player, I will still fall into myself. Simply the existence of Endurance on the path that it was with minimal changes, especially as a catch-up mode, we feel would have made the average player experience worse as it was cut off there. So, and that's what Mithrin said. Yeah, that's perfect. So Just Beauty says, how about a mode in which the enemies grow as you do? Well, that's the campaign. They don't grow as you do. They grow with the story. Or else, once you completed the game, you get access to a random map generator just to see your army going all out against high-level enemies. Oh yeah, that's all considerations for post-game modes and extra game modes that we want to, we still have unfinished Endurance mode that can be turned into something. It's just not going to be a catch-up mode. It just doesn't work for that. Have you considered, Jinzin says, have you considered an endless mode as a completely separate feature? Yes. As in, it doesn't give any benefits and it's just there as a fun mini game. Yeah, and that would be, I think, how we want to do it as a post-game mode. So, say you get through, the campaign, and then you really want to show off how awesome your army is. Before you go into, for example, if there's like New Game Plus content, you could be restricted to like the army that you just end up with after one playthrough and use that for post-game modes like the endless mode. And then that would just be like achievements, Steam achievements, just fun grinding, whatever, right? We don't want to burn you out though. That's the thing. Jinzin says it could also have a mini rogue light system, although I think that would be a lot larger. Yeah. I mean, there's so much we could do with this. It just takes time. Just takes dev time. One of the things that I think would be really fun, we've thrown about the idea of doing a Heroes of Might and Magic style campaign. And I don't want to just copy Heroes of Might and Magic. We both really love that game series, especially the second, third, and fifth entries. That's my favorite. I like 3 the best, then 5, then 2. 5 is good. Anyway. I think what I would like to do is... gosh, who's here? There's like nobody here. Or nobody's talking. All good. If you're just listening, all good. I think what we would like to do, or I would really like to do, is have not just a skirmish mode where like you just play one map for a really long time. That's kind of how Heroes of Might and Magic works. But to have an entire campaign, like an adventure mode, where you would start very small, and over the course of several maps, you would build and build and build. And basically you would hold on to that army throughout multiple adventure map scenarios. Heck, that could even be the way that the main campaign is structured for the sequel. You don't know. We don't want to completely throw out the baby with the bathwater, but that sounds like it'd be awesome. For example, if you just have a base, and let's say that the world map is covered completely in mist, and as you complete more of the story, it opens up, and then you can do, you can almost treat it like a strategy game or like a pure strategy game or like a 4X game where you can expand your territory. Let's say that there's some sort of resource node. Of course, there'd be more to it story-wise, but some sort of resource node or some sort of expansion area that you could, increase your faction's influence, resources, economy, stuff like that. We originally didn't want to make it 4X style. We wanted this to be like a straight-up RPG, which it is. But there's just a lot we can do with it. We can have both. We can have a main story mode that's just like Symphony of War, and then we can also have an adventure mode like that, where maybe there's not like a specific story to it. It's just and this would be awesome for multiplayer. Probably not going to happen, but that would be, like that sort of just have a faction and expand and advance your tech, advance your resources and economy. There's so much we could do with it to kind of embrace the 4X aspect there. Anyway, pie in the sky dreams here. We're so limited on our technical resources, so we're really stuck, and we got to get translation done. We're really stuck with that until we can get that going. But the bright side of this stuff is once it's done, we know how to implement it for all future installments. So, all right. Any other concerns about grinding? So grinding is kind of a thing that's just this learned RPG trope, right? And I got a lot of shit for this in another thread for saying this, but we have been trying to kind of unteach bad habits learned from past games, and one of them is definitely grinding. This idea that, gosh, it's hard not to sound sassy when talking about this, but I'll do my best. If you can't beat something, then you just have to get your numbers higher, and so you need to grind, and so therefore you get it in your head that the devs didn't put grinding mechanics in, therefore the devs failed because I can't beat this thing because my numbers aren't high enough. In a sense, that is a dev failure, but the solution is not to just say, okay, grinding as known in RPGs has to be in. Like, New Game Plus has to be in, as it's done in past games or in other games, right? The answer to that is no, it doesn't have to be in. The concepts can be in. The concepts of catch-up mechanic, farming for more resources, farming for more XP and CP. Those do exist as a universal constant in RPGs, right? Depending on what they call their resource. Grinding can be... You could consider grinding to be the fact that there's multiple things that you can miss in Symphony of War 1. You don't have to catch every objective. You don't have to catch every, side quest. You don't have to do all of the challenge missions. You don't have to get all the treasure chests. You don't have to kill every squad. So, in a sense, doing all of the stuff is a little bit of a grind, including doing all of your arena tokens. I find I don't even want to use all my arena tokens because I've already used enough to get the resources that I need at a specific time. And I don't particularly feel like just pumping out the same, bronze arena. So I always trade them up for the higher ones. So, I think the majority of people don't have too much of an issue with the grinding aspect of this game. TLDR, there's a method to the madness. I just ask your trust that we didn't include it and will later, and we have a very clear idea of our vision for how it is and how it will be going into the future. But we definitely appreciate the enthusiasm for it. Give me more. I totally get it. Like, I wish there was just plop, there it is. Like that, here's a Might and Magic mode. That would be awesome. it just something that just can't be rushed, and yeah, we gotta find a way to just do it. I haven't tried Warlord difficulty yet, but in Captain, I think the game is well balanced. That's good to hear. Okay, I've also wanted to go over. Let's see. A special request of me for the sequel, and that is to hire a story writer. So I really have to try hard not to be sassy here. But I'm pretty tired, so maybe that'll hold back the sass. But you've done a Fire Emblem. Oh, the bounce. So okay. This game is built in a fictional universe called Tanra, and it's the result of like 2 decades of just my imagination. Like, it started when I was like in high school, playing around with early versions of RPG Maker. Like, and honest to God, like I have kept certain pieces of geography, city names, historical events, political structures, religious structures, the entire time. So this, it's not Middle Earth, it's not Westeros, but it is categorically, it is a fictional world that's entirely mine in terms of, it's just my imagination, right? And it's just inspired by all the things that I've played, all the things that I've watched, movies, life experiences, whatever. So now my actual education, like my college education, is in music. So I started this whole journey writing music in terms of what I wanted to do. Like if you really love doing something, try making money at it, and that didn't really go too well. I started off and I didn't really like writing for other people, so I just wrote for myself and then made games. And then Deadly Sin 1 came out like in 2008, and it did okay. And Skyborn is the one that did kind of okay, but we didn't really see real success until Symphony of War. So because of that, I now have a renewed mandate to double down on advancing my skills as a writer, and with dialogue and with story flow, script writing. And actually the Symphony of War 2 script has been in production for many years. Because Symphony of War 1 took so long on a technical level to get done, I've been cranking away at the script, changing it, redoing it, blah, 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 for years. And without any kind of deadline, I haven't been just like finishing it. I've just been working on it, right? Which is cool. To be able to just kind of freely be a little bit of a perfectionist with it and keep iterating on it is really fun. The way the Symphony of War 2 script is now is huge. I'm going to have to cut some stuff out of it in order to make a video game. Like, it can be a novel or a movie, but a video game has to have like a certain amount of stuff that the player can digest, because you don't want to keep watching a billion cutscenes for the rest of your life, right? And at some point, oh my gosh, this game is 80, 90, 100 hours long minimum. That's a little excessive. So you kind of have to pick and choose. Now, I have to say to the folks who are saying just hire a story writer, because a lot of the reviews say, oh, the gameplay is great, the music's great, the graphics are fine, whatever. It's just the story sucks and the dialogue sucks. Look, I am well aware that that's what the reviews can look like. And I know that, I don't know, how do I put this? I'm not the kind of person to rest on my laurels with any skill. I think everyone's pretty much praised the level design of Symphony of War 1, but that doesn't mean I'm going to just rest on my laurels for that, okay? So I'm always going to try and be a better level designer. I'm always going to be try and be a better music composer. And so I think it goes without saying that, yeah, there's always room for improvement. Writing is not my formal education, but I think it's gone a lot better than it has in the past. Plus, I've hired a narrative consultant for this game, for Symphony of War 1. She actually is a freelancer, or was a freelancer at the time she helped me out with the script. And now she's working for a AAA studio, but it's like, I kind of feel like writing is one of those things that everyone can do it. And so everyone thinks they can. Everyone can type. Everyone can write an email. Everyone can write the forum thread. So everyone kind of thinks that they might be able to write a video game script and write a story script, but then adapt it to a video game. So that's a lot different than just writing, right? You have to, not only do you have to keep it within a reasonable scope in terms of what information you convey at a certain time, so you don't overload with cutscenes here or underload with cutscenes there, but you also have to fit it in with everything else happening. You have to fit it in with the evolution of the design of the game, the level design, the progression of how your units get stronger. You have to fit it in with, I think most importantly, the art assets and the technical assets that you have available. If your story is not going to be served by what resources you have available, you have to change the story. There's another thing here. In the course of developing this game, it started before I was a parent. Okay? The development of this game is older than my daughter. And being a parent actually made me really approach things differently in how I wrote some of the events in the game, especially when it comes to how some of the darker elements of the game are handled in regards to, the child abductions and stuff like that. That stuff is to me, there was a point where you were able to, if you were to fail an objective, it would result in a child death. And I had that in, and then I had my daughter, and then I removed that. Too dark. I didn't want to get it in. I didn't want to put that in there. It made me feel sick to my stomach to even put that in. So I removed it. I think actually most people would be okay with it. Just because it's, I think the average age of our player base is like 30, which is, I'm older than 30, so I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying, I think we're a mature enough audience that we can handle, you could probably handle that. I just couldn't, right? I said, I can't put child death in. So I removed that. There was also another thing that went in that I removed that I thought was maybe too real, was straight up PTSD that happens in the late game. There was before a character who was utterly crippled by psychological trauma and paralyzed. And you still kind of see a little bit of that in it, but it's been greatly reduced. The original version of the PTSD was just like paralyzed, just completely non-functional. And I thought it was too heavy. It was too dark. There's all sorts of crazy shit that happens. There's all sorts of just atrocities and war crimes and just awful things that happen in the, in terms of what the bad guys do. But certain things just kind of hit me a little bit harder. And that was one of them, to see a character, and it's a beloved central character in the cast, that just became a vegetable because they were so traumatized by the game's events that they they shut down. They just you can only take so much, right? That's very real. It's very real. That can happen, especially with, veterans, and that's that's hard to put in a video game. I thought that it would be too dark and too heavy. So, but I think that's mostly just a concern for me, the writer. I think that most people would have saw that as a mature theme, not necessarily something that's too dark and too heavy. There's also considerations for, there's things that can happen in this game world that our modern sensitivities might be averse to, such as species bigotry. We have humans, and then we have the cat people, otherwise known as Barak-Tor. We have Skyborn, and we have Demirians. Those are not in but there's going to be some enmity, expressed between these different species, these different sapient civilizations in Tanra, that will definitely come out in the Symphony of War 2. So I guess I think that is a completely valid thing to put in. I just want to be careful about how that's, not a reflection on Earth. It's literally just, this is just how I see things naturally going, that there would be, for example, Skyborn. Skyborn are haughty and arrogant, typically. In the game called Skyborn, they kind of look down on humans, right? So there's that sort of, but I think that's something that you can put in a game, and then there's other things. For example, there is a black market and a piracy network, basically, that's happening in the world of Tanra that involves the exchange, the trading and selling of slaves and drugs, right? And these are some really, really mature themes that make for a formidable opponent, a hateable enemy that you want to take down because they're doing that. It just, it's something that in past games I have dialed back just because I've personally felt that it was too heavy for an indie RPG. But now, I see that there's a hunger for mature stories, and there's a hunger for this game series, and there's a hunger for the games like this. So I will probably be a little bit less hamstrung for the writing for those things in Symphony of War 2. Let me catch up on messages here. The only time I felt there was a balance issue in the game, or Jinzen says, was when you get that big jump from 15 to 20 squads. It felt really unfun to try and level them up on platinum difficulty, and I ended up with 5. That's a good point, feeling like, okay, suddenly now I can fit all 20 in there. Yeah, we'll consider how that feels in the future. Because if you've just been building 15 squads, now you can do 20. Now you don't have to build 20 squads, right? It's just kind of how it goes. Just Duty says, I love 80 hours game. Not everyone would. Actual Milk says, I disagree with the story dialogue complaints personally. I think the story is fine, but not good. It gives context to the gameplay. I recall the characters well enough and had enough twists and turns to not make things 100% predictable. There's not really much to chew on and think about after the game. Things are pretty cut and dry, save for one plot beat, and I don't really feel like I want to discuss the story either with other people because there's not much to talk about. All right. In the context of... Oh, okay. And Just Judy says, in the context of war, I'd find it legitimate. Actual Milk says, I'd say that was a good call on cutting back on those elements. I probably wouldn't be fully comfortable with that kind of... What kind of thing? What was I talking about when you said that? I kind of got on a really long rant here. Okay. Yeah, so spoiler alert. Spoilers. 3, 2, 1. It was Alex who was able to die. So I cut that out. Now it's impossible. Which would have been extremely impactful for the story, you know. Pretty dark. Anyway, yeah, I just think that, you know, people keep saying, look, I guess I'm I'm not the most receptive to mixed, like, a compliment sandwich. That always hits me the wrong way. Like, you know, your game is fun and the gameplay is good. It's just that you should not be the writer. And I'm not gonna have somebody else be the writer. Like, what do you want? This is Tanra. Like, I am the only person on Earth who has developed this fictional world. I did hire a consultant for this to help me out, who is completely dedicated to the craft of video game narratives. Now, are you comparing me to Final Fantasy XIV or Tolkien? No, I'm not going to be able to, right? Unless I would have to spend like 10 years. It'd have to be some grand opus magnum, and who even knows if computers even work the same way they do in 10 years, right? And even if you hire the best narrative designer in the universe, they are not going to be able to just create some brilliant masterpiece for you. That's not a thing. You can, if you're part of a big studio like Square Enix, and you have multiple people on salary who are just like, that's their job, that's different. We're two indies, and we don't hire people. We don't have employees. We just have contractees, you know. So as talented as her name, gosh, she kept going by different aliases. Lindsay, she's very talented, but like, it was a story that, like, she was constrained, right? And what is she gonna do? Is she gonna give away like a Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers level of like, oh my god, I have to talk about the story because it made me cry, right? I love this character. By the way, people like some of our characters, so the characters, you know, they're memorable. You know, y'all say that. I mean, come on. And it's not just because of Giant Diana. I think a lot of the characters are talked about, especially in regards to like how they've been paired off or whatever. Lysander and Diana, I would say, are two very memorable characters that people willingly talk about and remember. So, and Beatrix, people like Beatrix too. Let's catch up on stuff. Oh, glad you didn't. Jinzin says, I was wondering why there were no downsides for rescuing Diana when Casimir's dialogue, the degree that would be a great idea for the story. Are you sure? I mean, it's dark and it's impactful, but it's, you know, we're all adults here. First time chat from Woebringer. Hello, Woebringer. As a rule of thumb, I have learned to ignore pretty much anything after but. Right. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's really hard to hear, like, you know, that somebody else should do it. I mean, think about that. No, don't write your own story anymore. Somebody else should do this for you. Give up. Don't pursue your dreams. Don't try and get better. Take your take your fantasy world that you developed and hand it off to somebody else. I'm not going to do that. Nobody would. I mean, unless you're George Lucas and you get $1 billion out of it. But no, I'm not going to do that. I even if it was the best writer in the world who would create this is what I do. I want to write it. I create games because I want to create games, not for whatever. I want to do it. So if I pay somebody else to do it, I got rid of one of my primary reasons for even being here. I got rid of one of the primary reasons for Symphony of War even existing. If I didn't want to do anything right myself, it wouldn't exist. It just wouldn't. So I guess there's the sassiness I was warning you about. But I'm it's like telling someone, no, you shouldn't pursue this. You shouldn't pursue this. You should just give up and do it some other way. Like, wow, okay. Let me catch up on messages. I love 80, 100-hour games, but I often don't end up finishing them. Exactly. Eventually, you just want to get done and move on. And I think it happens around 40, 50 hours for most people. I still have Pillars of Eternity, Cyberpunk, Witcher 3, all some way through Act 3. Took me a year to complete Divinity 2. Yeah, Divinity 2 is huge. Axe SZR says, there's only Square for me. Enix is a pile of crap. Just Beauty says, you chose to speak facts. Actual Milk says, the Uniquotes, when they're selected, go a long way. Yeah, they add a nice touch for sure. Lysander is such a force of nature. Yeah, Lysander is a nice character. I think I'm really happy how he turned out. First time chat from Floppy SY1. Floppy Psy1. Wait, Flopsy1, sorry. I love all the characters so much. What the fuck? I don't understand people can say the characters aren't memorable. I think they say the story isn't. But I think most people at least agree at least some of the characters are memorable. I will never forget Stefan and his getting thirsty here. Double meeting because of all the Diana Beatrix thirst. First time chat from Wargui. Stefan's cringy pickup lines were absolutely amazing. Oh, yeah. Hey, Milo, you're here. It's your game. Do what you want. Okay. I will do that, Milo. Followed by Glitch Cat icon. Flapsy1 says, Sao took 60 hours for me, most likely because I spent just as much time configuring my army as well as I did actually in levels. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. Yep, it's 2 games in one. Managing the army and using the army. Okay. Guys, was that too sassy? Milo says, I think people are trained to look for subversions and twists when they lack them and think that means that the story wasn't good. That's a great point, Milo. So to kind of expand on what you just said, there's been a few threads where like, oh, I totally saw that coming. Come on, you didn't fool me. Very rarely in the plot of Symphony of War 1 did I try and fool you. I think that it maybe is hard to see a couple of the twists that happen, especially in the late game. But I wasn't, like, I'm not Ryan Johnson where I'm like, meh, I'm going to subvert their expectations on purpose and then make fun of them if they criticize me, right? You know, I just, like, everyone saw a few of those twists coming. Even the characters in the game did. And that's why I had them react that way. Like when a certain person takes off their helmet and sees who they actually are. The characters already knew. And let's be honest, so did you. That wasn't a shocker, right? I was not under the impression it's like, oh my God, that's him? So, you know, and I think it would be cringe if I was like dying on a hill of like, okay, this is going to be the big reveal, you know, and I nope, that wasn't even in the equation. it just was like, yep, this is who this is. Boom. Just Duty says, my neurodivergent brain have so much to talk about story-wise, and since it's in the same world as Skyborn, I think your world building is rich enough to offer a great variety of perspectives. Yeah, the world is... Thank you. The world is really, really big. It's hard to fit it all in just video games. Like Middle-earth and Westeros, for example, have the advantage of being TVs and movies and books, which you can fit a way more lore and stuff into those because you don't have such a limited attention economy to spend on stuff like that. Woebringer says, good call, Milo. Folks have been trained to look for the bad ending, look for the bad not being the big bad, or that friend in your army stabbing you in the back, or being related to the true big bad. Yeah, a lot of tropes. Lurkermeyer, hey Lurkermeyer. Does the story get a lot of criticism? I don't think it deserves it. I guess you can't account for taste. I don't mind. It's fine if you don't like the story. It's fine. You don't have to love everything about Symphony of War. I just think that the response is not to tell me to have somebody else do it, right? Like, fuck that shit, you know? Like, I know there's better musicians than me, like Soken for Final Fantasy XIV, or Sakimoto, who did this Final Fantasy Tactics. I would love to have them write for my game, but again, then that's somebody else making my game, right? And it's I understand, there's two of us working on it, but it's like, Mithrin feels very passionately about the same stuff in the same way that I do, like in terms of formulas, systems, game design principles, balance, and stuff like that. He has very well developed philosophies on how that stuff should go. So he gets similarly, like he cherishes that part of the process, and wouldn't want somebody else to do that. Hiring help to just assist with the process and lighten the load, yeah. And I did that with the narrative. I hired a narrative design consultant, and sure, but it has to come from us, And so, yeah, I mean, whatever. It's not. I don't see them as haters. I don't see it's fine. Like you look, you're here. You played our game. You bought our game. You've already won me over, but just by doing that, we hear the criticism. We hear the opportunities for improvement. I understand that writing is not my central formal my formal education is in music, right? So I can go on and on about like music theory and stuff like that, and how the compositions go. But I don't know if anyone's really interested in that conversation. That's just like, oh, show me the music, right? The writing stuff, everyone can write. Not everyone can write well, but everyone can type on a computer, right? So that's, I think, a more interesting conversation for us to have. Let me catch up here. Blah, 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 blah. Flopsy says, honestly, good. I'm so tired of, no, it's not bad. I just subverted your expectations. Yeah, exactly. Some of the plot and that's a little bit of a dig of Star Wars sequels, which I do on every stream, which is fair game. Some of the plot of Symphony of War is a bit basic, I suppose, but it was still very entertaining. And yeah, of course it's yeah. Jinzin says, I think Lysander and Diana were very well developed, but some of their characters could definitely use some more love. A lot of the side characters ended up pairing off with minimalist story cutscenes. Yeah, that's the thing is, yeah, those characters, main characters, Stefan, Lysander, Diana, had the most screen time. They had the most significance to the story. So Diana did by virtue of being you think of the Donari Temple, and that's Diana. She's like the personification of the Donari Temple, and the temple was such an integral part in terms of organizations, entities within the game world, and how it, fit into the main story, that she was extremely well developed. Not only that, but because she has a child, it's actually in the game, who was impactful on the story, made her very well developed. And so that's what the DLC is not going to involve Diana at all. Sorry for the Diana fans, but she's so well developed already. Lysander too. Like, he got a lot of screen time. He got a lot of opportunities to affect the story. I think people point at those two characters as being the most fleshed out, right? Other characters didn't get fleshed out, but they're kind of like, oh, I want to know more about like Narima, like Raskuja, like Yaromir. That's why all three of those that I mentioned are actually, they're getting features in the DLC. So the DLC is going to and Abigail is getting some stuff too. Kuroda is getting some stuff too. And Terry's hugely featured in the DLC, by the way. So those characters that people are like, oh, that could be a cool character. They're getting a lot more love and a lot more screen time. Milo says, that's some crabs in a bucket mentality telling you to get someone else. Honestly, it was only a few times, but that's such a, like, you can tell me, like, get better at writing. Okay, guilty. I'll get better at writing. To tell me to have, no, this is my story. This is just my story, right? It's got a lot of input from other people, especially, Mithrin has a lot of input on the story. The narrative design consultant, a lot of input, but this is my story, right? So, Jinzin, I liked Lysander's character, especially the bond with MC, adds a very sad element to the end of the game. Yeah. The feels. Just Judy says, the interactions and bonds with characters what allows us to remember and like them. Yep. Wallbringer says, speaking only for me, the Symphony of War experience is greater than the sum of its parts. It's an indie gem, indie not being a slight bigotry, soft expectations, rather. Indie is not selling out to AAA and making something that's, yep, we're filling the gaps that AAA is leaving for players, including us as players, making something great that you like in the end, not making something to sell loot boxes and horse burning. Exactly. You nailed it. We made this because we like it. We liked the final product. We wanted to play it, right? We just felt that it was needed. We made a Bard class. First time from No Name Design. Please give us a follow if you haven't already. I consider the story fairly up there, all things considered. Sure, there wasn't some mind-blowing twist, but that you don't want to see coming. The story is great, delivering those moments that felt impactful. I haven't felt this way with any story for years, so the reading and playing through. Well, thank you. Thank you. Glad it was impactful for you. Bard would be cool. Yeah, it would. Bard or Dancer, stuff like that. Flopsy says, no! I'm assuming that's because of Diana. Honestly, that's fair enough. They're so central to everything. Yeah, Diana is in many ways the real main character of Symphony of War. Poor Raskuja with no supports. Yeah. Milazilla says, lol. As a Diana devotee, even I understand it wouldn't be fair if she got even more screen time. Yep, exactly. It would be creepy. It would be like, okay, what is the dev like obsessed with Diana or something? It's like, yeah, her story is fully told and wrapped up in a bow and good. Let's ship it and call it a done character. She could, I want to get her in like Smash Brothers. That'd be awesome. Think about that. Lurker Meyer says, I think one area that I've seen criticism that I thought was unfair was the story of beats and characters that played true to the tropes. I felt like they were used deliberately because tropes are fun, not because the weakness in storytelling, like the Hannah Xantis really reveals that no one is supposed to be surprised by that one. You're right. But it's fun to have that kind of character in game. Yep. Great. You said it better than I did. Yeah. I don't have a problem with tropes, cliches, stuff like that. The hero's journey. There should be a little bit of a twist on it, but that's, they earn their place in our tropey zeitgeist for a reason, because they work. So, okay, we're at 11:08 here. How do you feel about? Let's wrap this up with. Oh, by the way, guys, this has been a long week. I've actually been physically ill several of these days. Because my kid just goes to daycare and then brings back all this shit from other kids and then gives it to me, and I just I'm never healthy. Plus my allergies are bad. Plus it suddenly got cold here, so I haven't been sleeping well. Plus the midweek madness event has brought a lot of visibility to Symphony of War this week. And as cool as that is, I'm happy to have more people coming in. Boy, is it stressful, because you're digging deeper into the wish list. And so people that were a little bit more reluctant and therefore a little bit more, difficult to please are coming in. So it's been really stressful. We're finally at the last day of the sale. And I'm frankly relieved. So I'm looking forward to a little bit of a drop in activity, to be honest. Milo says, this is just me, but one thing I really loved about Symphony of War, it felt more like classic Christian story. It's actually, there is a lot of Christian mythos tropes and stuff like that, and I'm not like avoiding that at all. I readily acknowledge that that's how it comes off. It wasn't like I'm going to make it, like that's to me is super cringe, like I'm going to make a Christian video game, like no. But like obviously the return of the protagonist and just the way that, the various empires and the events, it is very kind of Jesus mythos for sure. Yeah. And definitely I would say in the first half, a lot of the enemies you fight, especially in the Civil War part of it, they're not evil. They're just on the other side. Like the Duchy of Remorg, Terranor's forces, they're not evil. They're just kind of like the other side of this unfortunate conflict. The Sayonari in missions 24, 25, and 26 are not evil. They're just on the other side of your political struggle, right? The Tide Reavers are slave traders. They're evil. Casimir's empire kidnap kids. They're evil, right? So there's a mix of it. There's a mix of like, oh, there's an unfortunate conflict happening with the Sayonari, of course. But then there's the cultists and like the Tide Reaver slave traders. There is no moral gray area with those guys, right? So I like to have that combination of, okay, let's not utterly destroy the Duchy of Remorg or the Sayonari. Let's try and approach these humanely in the realm of a war. But then when it comes to these child kidnappers and slave traders, there is no reason to be humane. There's no gray area. And it's like, not every villain has to be gray area, right? If you're buying and selling people, come on, where's the gray area there, right? So it's like, I think it's kind of nice to actually just have at least some elements that are like, no, this is pure evil, deserves to be destroyed, right? And that's why, and you actually see that meta happening in some conversation between Diana and Lysander, because Lysander kind of has this sort of academic devil's advocate approach to morality, whereas Diana is more, she's not dumb. Actually, I think she comes off very intelligent in the game, but she does kind of purposefully stay pretty dogmatic in terms of like, I am on the side of Donar and the divine, and I'm going to carry out that mission. Whether or not, like, my job as a paladin is to just kill stuff. That is to, kind of convey the culture of the Donari Temple. But primarily, she is the leader of the warrior sect of the temple. Her job is to destroy stuff and kill stuff, right? She's the weapon of God, basically, right? So it's not her place to like philosophize about the morality of it, right? And so she purposefully kind of holds herself back from doing that, while somebody not associated with the temple is more than happy to kind of say, okay, well, don't you think that the people that you're fighting also think that they're the good guys? That sort of kind of navel gazing, right? Flopsy1 says, make sure to spend some time for yourself. Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I've got a kid and other stuff going on, so it's a constant struggle for time. Milo says, oh, for sure, Lord of the Rings has those tones. Yeah, and I actually do think that I'm not a literary guy here, so just correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Tolkien came at it specifically from that Christian mythos point of view. I could be completely wrong. I don't know, but I've heard kind of just rumblings of that's where he came up with some of that stuff. I did not, but I probably, as somebody that's grown up in the United States, still that whole mythos is kind of just so deeply baked into the zeitgeist of how we approach pop culture that those things will come out. Casimir being a kid grabber, and a politician. No real moral. Yeah, he sold his moral gray area a long time ago. There's no salvaging him. And that's fine. You can have villains that just deserve to die, right? Flopsy1 says, well, true, but I think the positive impact of Tide Readers have on the economy. I guess. Yeah, they sell, they traffic in slaves, and so cheap labor. You save on the cost of processing nerve stem and mining pyrosite. Great. Anyway, Just Duty says let's not get into that. Jinzin says Tide Reavers #1 in player autonomy. Lord of the Rings is not extraordinarily Christian. Gotcha. Milo says he did admitted there was some inspiration just from growing in that atmosphere. Yeah. I mean, it's like unavoidable. If you grew up in the West, there's such a deep-seated Christian mythos that's baked into just how you talk and how you behave yourself, and even if you're like the most militant atheist in the world, you still are part of this culture. Actual Milk says, I do respect the way the last leader recruit in the story and the dialogue with Diana was one of the more standout bits of the story. Oh, with Kuroda. Just Duty says, did someone criticize you for character diversity? No. However, when it comes to relationships, yes. And that's one of those things where I just tell people, look, I'm never going to make everyone happy. I've had people from one walk of life request that I remove all types of bonds from the game, and then the other side of the walk of life requests that everybody have that kind of bond. And my answer to both of them is, I'm sorry, but this is going to be written for this story is going to serve the game. It's going to serve the chemistry between the characters and the story and the events of the story and what makes sense, like putting yourself in the shoes of the characters and what they're going through. It's not going to be based on people pressuring me to include this or that. I will say I had so this Tanra is a really big world, right? The first game only takes place mostly in Viridia, somewhat in Sayuna, right? But there's a lot more stuff out there, and nobody put me up to this. But I wanted to really expand. Because I was in a conversation with a player who described Viridia as a Europe analog. And that's fair. That is really fair. Like if you look at the geography, it's actually on the screen right now. Like that blue part is Viridia, right? And it's designed almost, like here, let me just use the cursor. So this part over here is like, and this could be considered like Scandinavia or Russia, right? And then you have up here, this is, you're getting into kind of like Eastern Europe, kind of like this, the Viridian redoubt, where it gets a little bit further inland. Then you have the coastline area. This swampy coastline is a little bit like the Netherlands and like the Baltic coast. There's a lot of marshy, swampy coasts there. You have a big, huge river system going through the middle of the continent. That's the Rhine. That's the Danube River, right? The Danube that goes through Romania, Hungary, Austria, blah, 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 right? And you have other large rivers that go through, like the Rhine and the Seine and stuff like that. And the Volga, right? You have countries that are just big, green, temperate plains that are on the coastline. What's that? That's France. Mild climate, green, lots of farmland, and it coasts, the big coastline, that's France, right? Then you have the same thing, but more inland. That's Germany, right? It's almost the same thing. And so it's a very much a Europe analog. And then if you look at Sayuna, you've got surrounded by mountains. It's arid. There's a desert in the middle. There is a river system that goes through and a large lake here that provides kind of, the center of civilization down there. That's basically Persia, geographically speaking. It's close to Europe, but it's not. It borders the area, or it could be Turkey. Really, it's still kind of mountainous, a little bit more arid than mainland Europe. And then you have kind of like this endless snowy plain that happens way to the northeast. That's like Siberia, right? So there's a lot of kind of analogs of Earth geography. So I actually have no idea why I got on this whole huge tangent about geography. Somebody remind me what I was talking about. Otherwise, I'm going to get into the Final Fantasy tier list just to do something fun here to kind of round out to the podcast or whatever this is, the dev stream. All right, edit scene. First time chat from Lurker. Grin. I got the game last weekend and it just absorbed me. 45 hours and I beat it. Great game. Thank you. Give us a follow. If you haven't, give us a thumbs up on Steam, please do. Appreciate you being here. That's right, Lurker. So we have Europe analog in Vernia. We have like a Persia or like an East Asia analog in Sayona. We're going to have, and I'm super pumped about this, a Mali Empire kind of trade empire, Mansa Musa style Africa analog in the next game. So you've got like the pirate traders who are all black market. They're all under the table, nasty guys. But then you have the traders who are above the table, right? They're just good business people. They're good at shipping. They're good at logistics, and they can reach the whole world. They maintain neutral relations with everybody because of that sort of profit first, business first mindset. It's very much inspired by Mansa Musa, who, as we probably know, if anyone has any basic historical knowledge, was this gold tycoon who used his wealth to build basically alliances and all that, kind of in the early medieval time period. So, things will get a lot more expansive. The word diverse has a lot of buzz, but it's going to be more, and we're also going to get more of the non-humans in there. We're going to get more Barek Tor, the cat people. We're going to get we're going to get Skyborn, they're non-human. And we're going to get Demirians, who are like halflings, but they're not just halflings. They look a little bit different. So, and we're also going to get more beasts in there for like units, stuff like that. So, way more class diversity, way more. So, capybara men and lizard folks. Yeah, I have a lizard sword guy. So, Just Duty says, a viewer asked me why there was no black characters in my army. I mean, that's not a deliberate omission. That's literally, that's the reason I wanted to expand Symphony of War 2, because it wasn't a deliberate omission. It was just the fact that this part of Tanra is the Europe analog, and then Sayuna is the Asian analog, right? And God, I hate saying that stuff because it sounds so cringy. This is a fictional universe, but I mean, if we're being realistic, people identify with those Earth analogs, so I guess it's a fair conversation to have. But I guess it's not as cringe because nobody put me up to it. It's entirely, I just wanted different stuff in my game world that more people from more walks of life can identify with, right? If someone were to like demand that I put that in, I would say no, sorry. Actual Milk says Raskuja left me hungry for non-humans. Yeah, just having someone that different showing up and being an almost non-element left me fantasizing about the small bits that we do get from his social links. Yeah, he actually has an extra mission in the DLC. Super cool. All right. Let's go to our Final Fantasy tier list. I don't even know if this is a good list, guys, so if it sucks, just forgive me. Got a lot of people in here now. Awesome. It's popping. Okay. Final Fantasy tier list. I want to do a tier list every dev stream, just for funsies. Okay, Final Fantasy 8. Okay. Your input, welcome. I'm going to go... I think it's actually kind of underrated. This is one of the ones that I actually only played once, way back in the day. I don't think it deserves... I think a lot of the reason it got a lot of hard time because it followed one of the favorites in 7, and people also liked 9. But I do think that it has some redeeming qualities to it. An interesting antagonist, an interesting plot. The execution, is not quite as good. I'm going to go low B here. We'll start it off at B. Okay, we have 11. Well, this is kind of weird because it's an MMO. But this game it's actually, I don't know, it's such a good game. Like, nowadays, you would never want to play Final Fantasy 11 because of the way that MMOs have evolved. But at the time, man, Final Fantasy was great. It's still, I still remember the music from it, and I still remember how hard it was to progress. I played it when it first came out, and I was like a sophomore in college or something, maybe a freshman, and excuse me. I played it when it first arrived in North America, and boy, I will never forget that game. Made some friends too. I've never played 15. Where did that go? Anyone played FF15? I'll skip ahead. 10 is A tier for me. No, that's 5. Oh God, I'm missing sleep. I'm missing so much sleep here. 5. I think 5 goes in underrated for me. I like 5 a lot. It's the least favorite of the Super Nintendo series, but I'm going to put it in a high A tier for me. The class system, so fun. The job system, I love that system, man. It's great. Yeah, the gameplay was phenomenal. The dungeons were really well designed. The enemies are really well designed. The job system, great. Just like the music was not up to par, and the story was certainly not up to par. But yeah, good game. Good game. 15. What do we want for 15 here? I guess I'll just keep going until we have a... What is this? Oh, the After. I never played this one. I never played 4. Or I never played 4, the After stuff. Where does that go? After is A. All right. 15 is a B. Okay. 4. Straight to S tier. Best one so far. 4 is very, very near and dear to my heart. I was such a little kid when this came out, but I remember playing it like right when it came out for Super Nintendo, and my dad and I sat and played through it. Man, that was a good time. He actually held the instruction book and just kind of went through me. He went through that like half the game through with me. I even brought it to like family vacations, and he still did that with me. It was freaking awesome. That, having your dad do that with you added it. But even if that didn't happen, this game is just legendary. I can't really play it these days, but for the time, unbeatable. One of the best. Yeah, seminal game, can't go. Yeah, tropey, but who cares? So good. 14. I don't want to put it above 4, but I certainly want to put it in S tier above 11. It really turned out to be just absolutely brilliant. It is, I think, the best MMORPG of all time, considering how well written it is and how forgiving it is. Like, it's not hardcore. You can just kind of play it like a single-player game, which is how I did it. I don't have time for MMOs, right? So I just played it. I played through all of the expansions, and just as a single-player game. It's just so good. Like, it's better than most of the mainline games in terms of story, music. Yeah, it's not really an MMO. It's just like an online single-player game. But in that respect, it's so good. So good. And Soken is just a freaking... I don't even... I would put Soken above Mitsuda and Uematsu. He's so good. He's so good. I might let him write my soundtrack for Symphony of War 2. He's not gonna, but that might be like the one person I would let. Maybe Sakimoto. I would let him write my soundtrack. But like, he's like the best. He's the John Williams of video games. And getting above Mitsuda and Uematsu is a very tall order. Just saying. And then the story writing is just, oh boy. Do I have to gush about 14's story? It's so good. Especially Shadowbringers, I thought was actually a better story than Endwalker, but Shadowbringers is just, whew, boy, major feels on Shadowbringer. Let's see. Okay, 9 is good. I'm going to put it here. It's 11:30. I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick here. 1 is one of the most legendary games of all time, but it's just 1. It's obviously outdated, but I'm going to put it here just because it created this whole thing. It's actually, I think, gameplay-wise, pretty darn good, just saying. That class system that it came up with, and just the expansive world. It was an incredible game back in the day. Incredible. 7, I'm not gonna like completely gush about. I think 7 has its praises have been sung to death. I was a little bit older than I think the average Final Fantasy fan when 7 came out. So I was not as completely swept away and impressed, and also I wasn't as much of a fan as the primitive PlayStation 1 graphics that it came out on compared to the crisp pixel art of Final Fantasy 6. But still, we can't not put it in S tier. Speaking of Final Fantasy 6, not only does this game belong right there, but it belongs there for a lot of tier lists. It just, what can I say? Final Fantasy VI is legendary. It's legendary. It actually holds up today. I actually played it like a year ago without emulator speed up. It holds up today. The music, the story, the characters, the dungeons are brilliant. Final Fantasy VI obviously is going to be the top of this tier list, and it would be the top of like, role-playing game, like role-playing games from the 90s, Super Nintendo role-playing games, JRPGs. I think it would still be the top of all those lists. Never played 10-2. Where does that go? I heard it sucks. I'll go and see. I'm running out of time here. Let's just power through this. 10 is great. I'm going to put it here because I'm not better than 5, but I really like 10 in terms of that era. I think it's my favorite from that era. 13 LR. What is 13 LR? I don't know. Let's just put it in D tier. 13 is... I didn't play it very much. I didn't like it. 3... I've actually never played 3. I don't know. 12 RW? What is RW? 12 is awesome. I love 12. I'll put it right there. I don't know what 12 RW is. I'll put it here next to 12, whatever. 2, never played it. Revenant Wings. Okay, gotcha. Two is D, broken game. It's a broken game. Okay. 2 is a C. Okay. 12, I think, is so underrated. I love 12. Okay. Well, that will do it for today. I think people kind of dropped off when we did the tier lists, but whatever. I think it's a fun way to kind of put a cap on the stream. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you have not followed the channel, please do. Don't subscribe to our Twitch, please, if you want to help us out. There's a Patreon that's for that. Let me see here. Whatever. I'll link it some other time. There's a Patreon for that. If you haven't thumbs up the game on Steam, please do. And we will continue to do these on Sundays. And let me know in Discord if there's a subject that you'd like to go over. Eventually, I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about because we're going to get the translation done. We're going to get the DLC done. And then it'll just be a really, really, really long time after that where we're going to get the sequel stuff going. So let me know. Okie dokie. And yep, appreciate the hangout. And we will call it there. Have a great Sunday. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.